Have you ever found yourself in a season of life where all of the answers that you're desperately searching for seem just out of reach? For many families, that is the reality of navigating, trying to find a diagnosis when you're unsure of all that's unraveling around you, your loved one's personality, the baffling symptoms that don't line up neatly with the doctor's chart, and the ache of feeling unseen in the middle of it all. That was the road to Gary Anderson's diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia, FTD. When FTD entered their lives, everything changed for Gary's wife, Nanci Anderson, and their daughters, Lindsay and Emily Anderson. In this conversation, Nanci and Lindsay will open their hearts about the long, confusing road to diagnosis, the challenges of caregiving, and the deep grief of watching someone that you love slip away too soon. They also share the turning point when they chose to honor Gary by creating Gary's FUB team, raising awareness through advocacy, their story of community and heartbreak, resilience, but carrying that love forward and finding purpose in the face of loss. This is a conversation you don't want to miss. I've had the opportunity to meet these women in person, and they are shining a light in a world where we need it. Here is my interview with Nanci and Lindsay. Today is always a good day when I get to visit with friends and two people that have just, gosh, popped into my life. I would say, was it May at the AFTD conference? But we've been able to
In
have
Denver.
lunch. Yes, yes, keep in touch. So, welcome, ladies, Nanci, Lindsay. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you
Good to
for
see
having us.
you.
It's great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So wonderful. We were kind of visiting, and Patty pulled me over, pulled you guys over, and we're like, Minnesota. There's a Minnesota connection here.
That was so beautiful that evening. Yes, yes, that connection and just the energy was amazing.
It was. I know so many good people all in one space. Just so thankful for that. I wanted to have this conversation to not only bring awareness. I think we can see ourselves in parts of that story. And so for us to be able to visit about what you've created, what you've walked through in your family is just so important. So I'm really looking forward to people hearing about that. And I want to start us by kind of taking us back before there was a diagnosis, before you even had language for what was happening. And what were some of those first signs in Gary that made you stop and pause and wonder what is happening here?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So, Gary and I had been married for 30 some odd years at the time, 35 probably. And, he was a very outgoing guy, right? He was one of these men that you would walk into a group of strangers and they were all his best friends before the end of the event, right? He was just that engaging kind of personality. And we started to see where he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to go out and visit people. He didn't want to be as active. He became somewhat, I won't say a recluse, but very, very pulled back from his normal personality. And he shared that he was often kind of confused, wasn't sure how to do things, which got me thinking, who is this guy, right? What happened to this man that I've been with for almost 40 years?
Mhm.
And so his work. He was a real estate agent. He was a high school volleyball coach, very active in the community. And he suddenly started to pull back and even turn down clients. He didn't want to work with clients, which I'm of course going, what the heck, buddy? This is our income. You
Yeah.
can't do that. And so just saw things that just were not him.
Hmm.
And he would just kind of leave it, I don't know. I did think he was starting to drink a little bit more, which had us very, very confused. Um, you immediately think it's a midlife crisis
Hmm.
because just his reasoning for things, as well as just his personality shift, did not align with the man we knew. Um, I think one of the final things that helped us helped me at least, right? Because I spent the most time with him was when we were in, we traveled a bit. I had to travel for work. And he joined me in San Francisco. And just he was easily lost, which was not him. And it was that he got confused and lost a lot when I would give him step by step about where to go. That I realized, this isn't just Gary being a little midlife crisis or stressed or even depressed. There's something more here. And that then, when we came back from that trip, is when we started having very deep conversations about what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
And, wanting to meet with his doctors more to help us figure out what was going on. And it was scary, right? Openly, I was actually asked, saying, hey, we did marriage counseling, right? His drinking was picking up. And so I'm like, yeah, you better get into AA. And we talked to counselors. So we tried to do things that we thought needed to be done, but they got us nowhere at all. And so it was very concerning, I think, to me, and I know to my daughters as well.
Completely. Lindsay, how about for you?
Yeah, from the daughter's perspective, my sister Emily and I were kind of reflecting on those very early days. And I think, Mom, you had it right, where it was like, is this just kind of a midlife crisis? I think the anxiety stood out to me. I remember and him being more reserved, but severe anxiety about simple things when he was usually the one that was willing to kind of break some of the rules or lighten up the mood. Simple things, like my sister remembered, there was a wine glass on the table and he was like so obsessed that was going to fall. And reflecting back, I immediately kind of go into this mode of, I remember thinking, why is he being so ridiculous? Like kind of judging him and immediately being, oh, Dad, come on, I slip into that parent mode where I was kind of judging him at the time and rolling my eyes. And as a young adult at the time, and also when this was going on, I was a new mother, right? And so I was stressed kind of dealing with a baby at the time too. But I just started I remember judging him a lot during this time and thinking he's drinking a lot. He's not taking care of himself. Like he needs to get healthier, and thinking there was an easy fix if he would just want to do it.
Right.
And now I'm like, that was the disease all along, that he was probably sitting in this fear and we didn't know what the answers were. But it was Mom that was like, something else is going on. Like it was a conversation after that San Francisco trip that my sister and I and Mom were like, okay, this is bigger than just, I think, a midlife crisis.
Right.
That we need to figure something out.
Right. Yeah, completely. And a lot of
I think it's normal for us. I think it's normal for us, especially as women, right? We need to fix it, right? And so as he, it's like, snap out of it, like that. But come on, fix it. We gotta fix it. What are we gonna do? We're gonna go to Johnson. We're gonna do this. And it's frustrating, when they don't really even understand what's going on, right? So,
yeah, right. Which is what would make sense that those different interventions didn't work, right? Like therapy and looking into the drinking, right? Because obviously there was an underlying uh, dementia. Yeah, that would make it really, really, really hard. And that's where families that I visit with, and I'm sure in your experience and world where you are more dismissed because there's those nuanced changes that you see in your loved one that are not who they are, but it's not this blaring, right? Visible change to maybe people from the outside in. And so for you navigating healthcare or diving deeper once you knew, okay, after that trip, we're going to really see what was going on. What was that next step like for you?
Yeah, so once I said, okay, there's really something here. And Gary also was sharing it didn't feel right. He wasn't feeling normal. He was, the good news, bad news with this disease, some people, they're self-aware. And he acknowledged and admitted, I just don't feel right. I find that I going to he was a volleyball coach. He would go to the gym where he's been going for 4 years, and he would forget. He would not really be able to cognitively remember how to get home. He knew his address. He had to put it in to his phone, and it scared him. I think a lot of the anxiety we saw was him scared about what was happening in his life to him. And so I started going with him to his doctors. He was on other meds. He was on high cholesterol. He was on high blood pressure. So I'm going with, because he would go and the doctor would just say, well, we're going to switch up your meds. It's got to be, you're funny, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling different because of your meds. So they switch up his meds, and it just made it worse. And then I started going so that I could hear and know exactly what was being said. And they were kind of just like, well, just try another med. And finally, I pushed really hard and said, this is after a year. I said, this isn't med. There's something else going on here. And so I pushed hard, and his GP, right, said, okay, we'll do an MRI and a neuroscience. Now, Gary's 57, 58 at the time. And so we go through the whole process. He gets the MRI, and the neurologist after the visit says, well, he has, from what I see, he has excess water on the brain, but that's developmental. That's just the way he, develops. Nothing to worry about. He's just depressed. So get him on antidepressants, go see a psychiatrist, and let it go at that. And I'm kind of like, water on the brain, shouldn't that be something more concerning?
Yeah.
But they're the professionals, right? And so we just, okay, and we marched to what they say. And we did. And he then went again, almost another year on antidepressants, and it still wasn't working. That we went to, and literally, I will admit it was a heated conversation with his GP because he didn't want us to go to Mayo. And I said, I'm going to Mayo. And I literally just picked up the phone and we cold called into the neurology department at Mayo Clinic.
Wow.
And it changed our lives. We then, we took the same MRI that had been done a year before down to Mayo. And they immediately looked at it and said, oh yeah, Gary has FTD. And I think the neurologists back here in the city, because he was so young, they were looking for Alzheimer's. I don't think they knew to look for anything else. And that's a scary thing because so many families do struggle. It does take so much longer to diagnose FTD, almost a year and a half longer to get it diagnosed than Alzheimer's, because it can hit at such a young age. But we were blessed that Mayo was just an hour away from us. So we were able to engage with Mayo, and they helped us begin this journey. It still was a scary journey, but now we knew what we were dealing with. And then we could stop blaming Gary for some of the challenges and weird behaviors and him not wanting to do stuff. And I'm like, come on, I want to go. We're going to go see these friends. And, I could stop blaming him, right? And know it was the disease and accept it.
Yeah. Wow. So I wrote this down. So 1 year with the doctor's appointment, and then another year trying different medications, and then you finally got to Mayo. So from the time that you started the process, that was what, 2, 3 years?
From the time we started seeing probably symptoms that at the time you don't put them, you just kind of ignore them, right? The behavior things. I mean, there was a lot going on in my family. I'd lost my father in 2013, my mother in 2014. So, I was focused on them. And so suddenly when that was over is when I started going, that's so scary, right? But yeah, it was a good 2.5 years before we got to Mayo.
Wow. in
Yeah.
that time, right, you're in such an unknown how for yourself between like and you knew, I think, probably early on where your instinct was saying something's not right. But then your physician is telling you something else. How did you keep going through that?
For me, I would just take every day, right? I'll be honest with you. I would get mad, right? I had a lot of anger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would blame Gary, right? You're not listening. The doctor said get more exercise. Before we knew what it was, I would get very angry at him, and then I get angry at myself. And you didn't know what you were angry at. You just knew
Yeah.
it was chaos and it was upside down, right? This isn't the world I thought I was going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I think once and Derek was always very sweet, and it was always, he would push back a little bit, but he also didn't know what to do, right? Because he himself was confused. I think once we got the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
then I could step back and go, oh, it's not him. He's not doing this to piss me off.
Mm-hmm.
It's the disease.
Mm-hmm.
And that took a big weight off. It
Mm-hmm.
also took a weight off after diagnosis in sharing with other family members, bringing my daughters more in to our lives and what we were going through. And they were an extremely helpful part of my care,
I'm
taking care of me through that. But it was very, very difficult to navigate that when you don't know what it is. Because
I
you
love.
want to blame somebody.
Right, right. That's so honest, right? We have so many different emotions and thoughts as we're doing that. And I'm so thankful you had, yeah, your daughters to be able to be in that with you. That's so important.
When the diagnosis came in, it was a relief, right? It was like finally, like mom can get answers. We can now, what the doctor's going to give us like a treatment plan, right? Like, what
Mm.
are the steps now, right? People that diagnosed with cancer, they get, here's the journey. You're going to take chemo. You're going to have surgery. There's like something they get to do to try to fight. I struggled with, you just have to do it on your own. There is no treatment. You do not, there's no chemo, there's no surgeries, there's nothing. You just have to kind of watch it.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like, well, that sucks.
Mm.
Like, there's really nothing we can do. Yeah, we could always, and now that we know that it's a disease, yes, there are like changes we could do that we can control, but there was nothing. There's no treatment. There's what we found and what mom found was that was when we first got introduced to the AFTD. Once we had the diagnosis, I think mom, you like immediately Googled support, right? And the Association for FTD is I think I like read the entire website trying to like
You're like,
understand.
help me. Yeah.
Like, okay, what is this? I've never heard of it. Like frontotemporal, what is this? All I knew was Alzheimer's. All I knew was, okay, dementia. It's like what old people get. It's
Mm.
my dad is in his 50s. What is going on?
Yeah.
Um, but I think mom's right. Like we could finally say it to other people. We weren't just like embarrassed by some of the changes in dad. We could now tell our friends, and now I've got to be caregiver. I wasn't expecting this at my age as a child, caring for a parent, but we had a good teamwork effort between my sister and my mom and like our really close village to kind of help us navigate what we now had answers to somewhat.
Yeah. Oh, I I wonder about that too. So with there's no treatment plan, was there any offering of resource or support as you were at
So it's funny. So we were at Mayo, and when Dr. Notman, amazing neurologist, said it was frontotemporal degeneration, and we're like, what? And he did hand us a booklet that was from AFTD.
Mhm.
That literally, it's a green book. We talk about it all the time at AFTD. It's like, doctor says it's FTD, now what?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a very nice, concise book. But what it pretty much says is There isn't anything medically. There's nothing the medical professionals can do. You need to get your finances in order. You need to get a circle of support and caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all these things that were, no, I want you to tell me that you want us to come back down and you're going to do more tests and you're going to give us something.
Yeah.
But there wasn't any of that. But it was AFTD. It was going in and learning from their website. But I also literally within 2 weeks of diagnosis, I was sitting in a chair in a support group. And that truly was one of the biggest moves and support and ways for me to maintain my sense of life and what to expect was through a support group.
Right.
Sharing with others that have been diagnosed, that had either are walking the journey or are in the middle of the journey is huge. And it's because it's so different than Alzheimer's, it really was important to be in one that was with FTD because the behaviors can be so different. The age, right? You can be in your 40s. I mean, it can hit you only 45 to 65. You can have children at home. You can lose massive income, which we lost Gary's income. I eventually had to go part-time to be available to be caregiving. So that was a huge thing. But on the medical side, which we did, right? So Dr. Notman and Mayo did ask Gary to participate in a study. So we did go to Mayo once or twice a year, go down as part of the Alzheimer's or AFTD study or FTD study, which was great. But it was not going to help Gary. It was going to help futures, and that's why he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's
To
nothing.
also be carried and supported by the other, right, in the support group that they might be a little bit, if we write a few steps ahead and can offer, yeah, just some guidance and practical ways. I think we learn so much from each other with that. Yeah, you share about the relief, which is it is a relief to just know. I think the unknown is just so unsettling. And I was doing a podcast with Allison Schreier of Zinnia TV, and her husband was diagnosed with FTD. And she was sharing about all the years where his interaction with his employees and his work, they didn't have any answers. And when she got the diagnosis, she was like, not that I was like happy that that's what it was, but she's like, it was a relief. And she goes, I actually went to some of his employees and was like, good news. He's not an asshole.
True.
Like, she's like, I felt like and I've shared the story on other podcasts, but she's like, I felt like I could redeem his good name, and I
Yeah.
that just to have that is just, yeah, so helpful. So now we've got diagnosis for people listening that might not be as familiar with what is FTD. Can you share with us more about that?
Yeah. So, and we were the same way, right? FTD, to me, I was thinking that's power delivery, right? For some of us old school. But FTD is a form of dementia that does usually hit people when in 45 to 65. It's the number one dementia diagnosed in individuals under 65. It really has three kind of core variants that kind of begin the first symptom. First is usually around behaviors. It can be where they become more empathetic or apathetic, or they may have weird behaviors where they become compulsive or obsessive on things and become erratic. Then you may have where it is language, where they can't understand words, they can't put words. Words don't mean anything. They can look at a word and not know what it means anymore, or think they know what it is and put together funny sentences, and that's aphasia. And then there's the mobility side. There's a third side which has mobility, which can be basal. That's what Gary had, where eventually his manifested from behavior into mobility and basal. And that also can be mobility with AFTD and ALS. So we have found through research that there is some connections with some ALS patients. Mm-hmm. So those are the three signs or the three variants. And the challenge is because they're so different, and you may start with aphasia. Like I know individuals who they started where they suddenly just couldn't grab the word. There is no memory challenge. It's not a memory issue like Alzheimer's. It's either from behavior, language, or mobility, and eventually, more than likely, the individual will cross across each of those. Will have some symptoms of each of those three variants. So it's and that's why it's so hard to diagnose. It's younger, and it's not your typical dementia as most people think about.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for explaining that. As you were now doing life, right, day to day, I want like from each of your vantage points. So, as a spouse, like how was your relationship? How did that change? What did you learn about yourself? All of those things that when you're in that role.
Yeah, so we had just after the diagnosis, we had just moved into a smaller, easier living arrangement in a townhouse. So we were settling into that. And much of that, I mean, Gary was a realtor, but he really couldn't lead the effort to find even the house. We had to bring in another realtor because his just understanding and cognitive and processing wasn't there to help us. Mm-hmm. So I did have to become more of the decision maker, the advocate, the one, that kind of took charge of stuff. I'm already kind of a take charge kind of person as it is, but even more so. And then into the caregiving as well. And that was the shift, right? And suddenly being where you're just a wife and a partner, right? We partnered on so many things. That then I had to kind of take the charge of it, right? If we're going to go somewhere, I'm driving, deciding where we're going to go or who's going to come over. Those were just shifts that we had to do. I also then had to look at going part-time because as he progressed with his cognitive as well as the mobility, where it was difficult for him to get around in the home, let alone leaving the home and things like that. It didn't really want to have him alone very, very long. And eventually he got to where we didn't want him home alone at all. Mm-hmm. He would fall. He broke his collarbone. He cracked a rib just on these things, thinking he can do something, but he couldn't. And so it was very difficult going from being a very active couple to being very more somewhat recluse. But I still tried my best to keep us as active as we could. So yeah, it was a shift, no question.
Okay. Oh, completely. Lindsay, how about for you?
Yeah, I think it was, my sister and I knew we kind of had to enter into caregiving mode, right? And it was not only just adjusting to the new relationship that we were trying to build with Dad in this new way of him, seeing him sort of start to disappear. Mm-hmm. There were moments where I was a new mom at the time. I felt like there were moments where I was starting to treat him like like one of my children. And I tried to be aware when I was doing that. Mm-hmm. But then also it was like, this is what the new normal is, caring for him, making sure, because the disease, he can't make some of these decisions. He can't be home alone, helping him move around the house, that kind of thing. It was so hard to watch, but I also realized that I think my sister would say the same, as like we both had to be really strong about it, because I think we noticed there were some things he would also try to hide from my sister and I, where he didn't want to see some of his progression. My mom, I think too, they were at times probably trying to protect us from seeing how things were progressing. And so it was like full on caregiving for dad, but then realizing like I got to keep mom in mind too, because like her life partner just, our life got kicked in the gut. And, I had to make sure too that we're keeping an eye on her. She is a power, you can kind of tell, and, even this interview, she is a decision maker. She takes charge. There's no doubt in that. But she's so strong sometimes that she can forget about being mindful of her own care and taking breaks, and that everything is okay. I think there was a moment where in like the journey that she, had an opportunity to go to a cabin, and we got a village of people together to say, we're kicking mom out and we're going to take care of dad for a few days so that she could reset and we could really like understand the day to day. And I think it was in a really dark place in our journey too, where after some of his falls, his mobility had really progressed, that when my sister and I think a few of our family members had to really spend a lot of time with dad, it was shocking how much care he needed. And it's like, until you really are in the day to day, you have no clue. So people can easily judge and say, oh, Nancy's fine, she's got this. And yeah, she does. Like, I never doubted she couldn't do it. But it was also eye-opening of, in Gary's case, in dad's case, how honestly fast his progression had gone. And that we probably needed to make some even harder decisions after that weekend, when mom, realizing what mom was having to do at night, you know what I mean, and throughout the day. So it showed, I think, it at least opened up for me. I could soak in some of the strength that my mom has given us, that I am strong enough to be able to like manage and help dad out in this way. But it was eye-opening for sure.
You share that where, yes, until you are in it, and the days and the evenings, you really don't know. And I'm sure it just gave you so much better ways of even to know how to support your mom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Having that moment when you say that that was like a really eye-opening for you, it sounds like there's, right, you're anticipating change and grief within that. And did you find yourself experiencing that throughout all of it? And, not only after Gary's passing, but where did you pull from for the ability to change and take that grief to move it into advocacy?
Mom, do you want to speak first? Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'll add is we eventually, I think it was after that weekend, we knew we had to move him into more full-time care. And we actually decided earlier in the process, when we got the diagnosis, that we were going to be advocates. It actually wasn't even during the grief or after he died. It was when we got the diagnosis and he was willing to sign up for tests, and there was nothing we could really do. The only thing we could really do is help the future of this disease. And so it was early on that we were like, okay, what we can control is to try to spread the word about this disease, this dementia that no one really knows about. And through partnering with AFTD, because they really helped us out earlier on.
Yeah, it's like that, how Lorenzo's house talks about that dementia justice, right? You want to
Yeah.
find dementia justice.
Yeah. Because Gary did participate in a study down at Mayo, and it was not easy for him because, PET scans, MRIs, he was claustrophobic. And for him to have to go do those, it was really daunting. And so when we the girls and I talked about it, it was like, well, if he can do that, what can we do? So we held our first AFTD fundraiser, Food for Thought, in 2018 at the local pizza parlor that was one of Gary's favorite spots. And so, and we just had a tremendous turnout for friends and family in our community. And that is kind of how we felt like we were giving in a way, right? Because there isn't, right? There was nothing else we could do to change the world. And so that was one way, and we've continued through that. I think another way I want to make sure that one of the key things for how I had to personally deal with it, no question, my faith was huge. Knowing that it was through my faith that I was having the strength to walk every day with him through this. It was, I remember times when I'm pushing him in a wheelchair down the hall going, how did I get here? I'm barely 60 years old and I'm pushing my husband in a wheelchair, right? You know, those little snippets, right? That just take you aback. But I also feel that I only focused on the moment, the day. I couldn't look further. I couldn't look in the future of, okay, does he have weeks? Does he have months? Does he have years? What can we do today to make his day the best there is? To make the life with my husband and my daughters and our family the best it is. And so really focused on that to, you know, from making changes in our home to setting up, you know, my office here became the study or his CD room because he couldn't get downstairs anymore. We would do anything to just make sure that whatever time and whatever day he was living, we could make it the best it is. And that's just how we had to work every day, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I remember when, you know, at this point, he eventually was completely wheelchair bound. And we made the tough decision to move him into a senior care facility, which is a whole other journey we could go into as well. But I remember mom called me and my sister, and she said, I'm buying a van. And I was like, what? Then this is like still trying to give dad his freedom because he's young. He is not, you know, in his 80s, 90s. Mom bought a wheelchair van so that they could still go out on dates and we could still take dad and go to music and grab ice cream and drive around the lake. Like my sister and I have a ton of memories just driving with dad in the van. And those are ways in which we could take grief, but then still enjoy and have a normalcy, right? In the middle of his dementia with the time we had with him. You know, I would bring my kids, we would adjust our schedule. We had a regular time where we would go and spend time with dad. And my little kids at the time, they were probably 6 and 2. And they spent more time in a senior facility that year and visiting with Poppy than we had a ton of memories, right? Just being able to leverage his mobility that he had and just tried to make the most of those moments. That helped with grief, right? That helped with like trying to see the silver lining. But those are like core memories, even for my grandkids today, you know, for my kids, for his grandkids today, that we could still find the light in those moments. And it was my mom, it was you, Mom, that like, I think spearheaded trying to make life normal in the middle of this dementia journey.
What beautiful.
There's nothing else to do. That's the only path I could see.
Yep.
That was the only way, because I could, you know, I had a friend once when I first told him about the diagnosis, he goes, aren't you angry? And I'm like, angry about what? I can't be angry. What good? I use up that energy and anger? No, I'm just going to use all of my energy to love my husband, my family, move forward, deal with it today, because anger is just going to, turn the black cloud even darker. You know what? We just move forward. And we were blessed that Gary was not, he still was fairly aware, right? He knew he had the disease. That was a hard thing. He knew where this was going. He wasn't in denial like so many with dementia. Like, I'm fine. They think they're just fine. He knew, but he accepted. And that was the one thing that I think he accepted it. So we did.
Yeah.
We accepted that disease and knew that that's what it was. And that's what we had to just deal with and live that day as that day and not think about the future and just make the most of every day we had with them. And the joy that we got from those grandkids coming and playing, dress up. I got pictures and videos we have, right? That brings us joy even to this day. And it's how we, as a family, dealt with it. And you just have to accept it.
Yeah. Well,
we also named the disease instead of because it gave us peace, a little bit of peace or just a little bit of humor in the middle of it. And it was, Mom, was it Dad's idea?
Yeah.
You tell the story.
It actually
started with him, right? Like he wanting to give it some name.
We were, because he was self-aware, imagine knowing you have this disease, that you're losing your understanding and your mobility. He knows he has it. So he was seeing a therapist, right, to just help him deal with this. And he always wanted me to join us. And we were at the therapy appointment, and the great man, he just, said, Gary, instead of always saying the disease, why don't you name it? Give it a name. And Gary just snapped. Yeah, it's FUB, F-U-B. And the guy goes, well, what's F-U-B stand for? Effed up brain. Now, he didn't use the short version. He said the real version.
So good.
And but that gives you a sense of Gary's personality too. He was a joker. He could tell more jokes. He was just a funny guy, right? And he goes, yes, it's FUB. It's effed up brain. And we loved it. We laughed about it. And that then became how we would describe the disease, or if something would happen, right? We go, oh, there's FUB. Don't worry about it. That was FUB. Oh, there goes FUB
There
again.
were more curse words typically, effing FUB.
Yeah, we usually didn't use the
Yeah. But
good.
It was a relief sometimes to use it.
Yeah. And as a way to separate it, right, from Gary, right? And so, and that has become, as you know, right, and we'll chat about it, has become our brand, right? Because that's who Gary was, and that's how our family rocks.
The legacy lives on, and I want you to share with us about Gary's FUB team and what is all transpiring with that. And we're going to share, a little bit more about where people can get involved and how they can support all of that. But yeah, tell us, how did you guys decide to say, okay, we're going to take this and make it more formal?
So we did our first fundraiser, like I said, at the Pizza Parlor in 2018. And it was wonderful. We felt so good about it. Gary was there. And the girls and I both, I remember this phase, I think you said it, Lindsay, said, okay, we're going to keep going and we're going to blow the socks off this, right? So we want to go bigger. So we then went to our local brewery here in downtown South here. And we said, we're going to do a fundraiser there, but to raise more money, we're going to do raffle and auction items. Well, in the state of Minnesota, you have to be a nonprofit to do a raffle because it's a game of chance. So we have to set up a nonprofit. And as we're talking about, okay, what should our company, our nonprofit be? It was very easy for us to go, well, it's got to have FUB. So it's Gary's FUB team became the name of our nonprofit. And that we established, actually, we probably established it in 2018. So we could do raffles in 19. And that has been it ever since. And it's started out just as our local community here in our little hometown where Gary and I both grew up. Local brewery, local friends and family, live music, got to have live music because that was Gare, and food. And so we started that. First one at the brewery was in 19, and we've been doing it ever since. And we're going to do another one here in September, 22nd of this year. And we've gone beyond our local community. We now are focused less on just kind of, in the first few years, it was in honor of Gary and in memory of Gary. But now this is beyond Gary. This is for the whole community of our Twin Cities, for families that are walking this journey and how we can help them. So we've expanded it with guest speakers that share their journey, family members that can share their journey with the attendees, as well as the last year and this year. We have been fortunate to have neurologists from Mayo Clinic come up and be our keynote speaker and share information on research and studies and just what it is, right, and what to do. So it gives us more purpose. And we know that this is what Gary would want because, like I said, he did the study. He put himself through a lot of shit down there because he wanted to help future families. And we're trying to keep that going by helping today's families and future families with our event and fundraising for AFTD, which is an amazing organization.
Yes, tell me more about that too, because I know that you are an ambassador for them and building community around that.
Yeah. So again, starting in 17, the girls and I all were volunteering. We would do events, medical conferences. We did Meeting of the Minds, which was a joint, we'd have a table and we'd share information. And Meeting of the Minds is a joint between Alzheimer's Association and Mayo Clinic, did the University of Minnesota Rare Disease Day. And we've just done various other things to support AFTD. AFTD is just an amazing group of nonprofit that, in my heart and what I see, is they focus on the caregiver and the families and their journey. And so they really have resources on their website and their educational conference and webinars and different things, and then ambassadors around the country who really has a heart for caregivers and for families. And everything from, yes, you're recently diagnosed, where are their support groups, where are information to, what do you do about the kids? They have specific information and webinars about for young families when you have young children or teenage children or young adult children. How to grieve, right? They have a whole section on grieving, and they do all sorts of other events around. They also do fund research, and so they're also very much focused on helping with research. They're a key research funder for things going on at Mayo or for some of the national studies that are going on around the globe, actually. And so I think they just have this heart. And that just aligns so well with what our family needed and want to continue to support. So
and it brought all of us together, which is wonderful.
And it did.
Yes, so many good ripple effect of it all.
People with heart. It's the lifeblood of walking this journey.
And it's the community. I think it's really helped foster a community of people we've been able to meet who are connected in dementia and aging and caregiving and all that. That helps connect, make connections, offer to share stories. It's really, while we love to host our events, they're a ton of fun. The one in September, it's September 22nd. It's in Plymouth, Minnesota. It will have raffle, auction, live music. It's at the Hutton House, which is an amazing facility. There's indoor and outdoor space. And, last year we had about 150 people and raised almost, close to $20,000. So we're really trying to like every year grow and grow and grow. And getting involved is what I think we love to see, people that want to help out, right? Who, as Mom mentioned, while we still carry it's Gary's Pub team, we're doing it for others. We're honoring him, but it's more around sharing education. So we actually will have education tables also there with local businesses and support groups. And it's kid friendly, which I love. So it's nothing fancy, just, come and enjoy and learn and meet the awesome community around the area. And again, all proceeds go towards the AFTD. And our focus this year is around what's really taken off, which is around the genetic side of FTD and the understanding there's, a majority of FTD comes from the sporadic side, which is what my dad had. It's sporadic. It kind of comes on. There's no genetic connection. But there is a large community that have the gene, know that it's within their family. And so it is within that group and that community where there's a lot of research and testing going on. And so we want to provide some content at our event this year around that and the kind of benefits of understanding the genetic side and some of the more medical terms, but in a way that can make a connection with those in attendance of the event. So.
And I'll be there
Yes,
supporting
yes.
you, which
Yeah.
wait for
We
that.
got your table ready.
Ah! I'm just going to be a cheerleader. I love it. For those listening who want to support your work, or whether it's attending the event or donating from afar, if that's an option, where can we direct them?
So we have a website, garysfubteam.simpletix.com. We'll make sure there's a link provided. There you can find more information. There you can get tickets. There's information about the program, the schedule. It's a website not only for tickets, but if you can't join the event and you just want to help donate to Gary's Pub team and the AFTD, there's also a link in there too to make any sort of monetary donations. We are, a nonprofit, so we can provide any tax documentation that's needed. The other thing that I wanted to mention around like ways to contribute is it's a fundraiser. And so like some of the things that really bring engagement and, raffle and auction items are just like those really fun items that people can bid on to kind of make it exciting. So we're also, in the middle of kind of getting those logistics figured out. So if anyone has, a cabin they're willing to donate or tickets that they never get to go to, that they're willing to offer up, that's the kind of stuff that we have been so blessed with over the past 2 years that we receive some of those, but we're always looking for more because we're really trying to continue to grow every year. So that's just another way that you can get involved with the event. Again, it's on September 22nd from 5 to 9 in Plymouth. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. And then we do it again next year, and we meet new people and connect with the community.
I will include all of the links in the episode description for people listening.
Perfect.
They can go and just click on that and be directed right to you. And before we end our time, what's something, so I'm going to give you some options here, but what's something really funny Gary would say right about now, or what would you want people to know about Gary?
What he would say is, here's looking up your address.
Yeah.
Is that appropriate? I don't know. You remember that, Lindsay?
He would have a toast, he would say a silly dad joke in this moment.
Yeah.
He would also, he was a great hugger. He was a connector and really cared about how people were doing and wanting to stay involved in people's lives. I still have high school friends to this day, that grew up with him that always say, hey, I'm cooking steaks and I'm thinking of Gare, so that's what we want him to remember, not the last few years of his life. And I think he would want everyone to have a really amazing time at our event.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He'd say thank you.
Wonderful.
He'd say thanks. Yep.
He also would say thank you.
This was just so special to have you here, and I'm just so appreciative. And like opening your world to all of us is really a gift for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, we've been blessed to make that connection in Colorado. It's amazing, right? How those things can happen serendipitously. I love it. Yeah. And look what we can do, right, together. And so we really appreciate you inviting us on and letting us join you. And we'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.